So Tulsi is, again, what these confirmation hearings have been showing is how corrupt your government is. Not Tulsi, not RFK, not Kash Patel, but how corrupt the senators are. You know, the people who are elected for 6 years. So here she goes. Here's her opening statement.
I'm honored and grateful to President Trump for his trust and confidence in nominating me to serve our country as the Director of National Intelligence at a time when trust in the intelligence community, unfortunately, is at an all-time low. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, "You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you."
And I'm going to take credit for popularizing that clip. Everybody always quotes that clip now because I was the one who started showing it. And why do you got to brag like that? Because if I don't tell you, nobody else will. Okay. Thank you.
Guess what, buddy? You're going to be on your 5th way from Sunday pretty soon.
That's right. I'm on my 5th way. So anyway.
For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. The most obvious example of one of these failures is our invasion of Iraq based upon a total fabrication or complete failure of intelligence.
Oh.
This disastrous decision led to the deaths of tens of thousands of American soldiers.
Oh, yeah, people. So I love that. So she's letting you know that, hey, we all agree that our intelligence community completely lied to us about Iraq. Just so you know. So they're not sacrosanct, which is what the senators want people to believe.
Millions of people in the Middle East, mass migration, destabilization, and undermining of the security and stability of our European allies, the rise of ISIS, strengthening of Al-Qaeda and other Islamist jihadist groups, and strengthening Iran. Here are just a few other examples. The American people elected Donald Trump as their president not once but twice, and yet the FBI and intelligence agencies were politicized by his opponents to undermine his presidency and falsely portray him as a puppet of Putin. Title I of FISA was used illegally to obtain a warrant to spy on Trump campaign advisor Carter Page, using a Clinton campaign-funded false dossier as their so-called evidence.
So she's laying out all the lies and crimes in recent history that the intelligence community has committed. They lied to the FISA court 17 times so they could put a tap on Donald Trump's phone and everybody in his campaign's phone.
Well, that's a lot of effort. The only failure on the intelligence community's part I can think of like lamer than this is the 600 attempts on Castro.
Yeah.
Losers.
Biden campaign advisor Tony Blinken was the impetus for the 51 former senior intelligence officials' letter dismissing Hunter Biden's laptop as disinformation specifically to help Biden win the election.
Oh, yeah. Even more recent. 51 CIA guys said that Hunter Biden's laptop was some kind of Russian op instead of what it was.
Earmarks. I thought I saw some earmarks.
It had all the hallmarks.
Yeah, a Russian information dump. Russia could have pooped that information to us. You don't know.
Former DNI James Clapper lied to this committee in 2013, denying the existence of programs that facilitated the mass collection of millions of Americans' phone and internet records.
Do you remember that? You remember when James Clapper went in front of Congress and they asked him, "Do you collect data, mass data on the?" He said, "No, we don't." Not wittingly,
yeah. And
that was a lie.
Oh, by the way, all the stupid spy movies everybody loves, that was to imprint in your subconscious that it's good these people are there, unaccountable to anyone. Because governments are stupid. Remember MIB? They explained to Will Smith, the great Will Smith, they go, we have to be above the government because they're so dumb, and the people because they're too stupid. Just an uncommon Will Smith mind.
Never held accountable. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass, labeling them as quote-unquote radical traditionalist Catholics. Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Sadly, there are more examples. The bottom line is this: this must end. President Trump's re-election is a clear mandate from the American people to break this cycle of failure, end the weaponization and politicization of the intelligence community, and begin to restore trust in those who've been charged with the critical task of securing our nation.
Well said.
I like that she looks like X-Men right there. Like, it looks like I'm watching X-Men 2. She looks like a powerful mutant leader with one white streak and a white costume.
I like that. She's wearing white in January. It's a lot of balls. I think she pulls it off. She makes about as much sense as anyone who still uses the word Islamist could possibly accomplish.
I like Mohammedan myself.
There's so many great things about Tulsi. She's like the love of your dreams, except for the fact that she farts and snores and when she's sleeping. You know what I mean? It's like one of those.
What? That's what I'm into, Jimmy. Don't put a nickel in my back with that.
But she's great on like that right there. And she's going to go on and do. She says things that nobody else in government will say. So that's why I've always admired Tulsi. Always liked her a lot. And yeah, she's flawed, just like all people are flawed, and especially people in government. But she's the best we got.
For this job at the moment, yeah, I would say so.
For this job at the moment, there's nobody I would want in this job besides her. Former Representative Tulsi Gabbard told the Senate Intelligence Committee she would end politicization of the Intelligence Committee and rebuild trust through transparency if confirmed as Director of the National Intelligence, as she seeks to quell wide-ranging concerns about her foreign travel, statements about Russia war and Ukraine. Okay. So, by the way, trust through transparency. What's amazing to me... Anyway, who cares? Why isn't this working? This isn't working. Uh-oh. Oh, now it is. But senators of both parties questioned Gabbard, one of Trump's most embattled cabinet picks, on her history of defending Russian President Vladimir Putin, her praise of National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden, who shared sensitive... Okay, so yeah, I mean, those... Again, they're attacking her for the good things she does. That's the same thing with RFK. They attacked him for suing big pharma companies and winning. They attacked them for the good things, not the bad things. They agree with her on all the bad things. Max Blumenthal says, for the first time, a national U.S. audience heard about one of the greatest national security scandals in the 21st century, as Tulsi Gabbard details the CIA's Timber Sycamore, which armed the organization responsible for 9/11 and ultimately was placed in power in Syria. So nobody else. This is the Democratic Party. They throw you under the bus for everything you got right. Here we go. Watch this.
Senator Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Gabbard, when Russia was denying us use of chemical weapons, they accused the U.S. of supporting terrorists. This is a line that Putin used frequently during the Syrian civil war as he supported Assad. Syrian officials made similar...
So now what this guy is doing is lying and attacking someone for being honest and truthful. So this is he an astronaut? Should have stayed up.
That's what that is?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think he was an astronaut. I could be wrong.
Comments, they did it repeatedly. They did it in public. They did it at the United Nations. In 2016, you gave an interview in which you said, and this is a quote, the U.S. is providing direct and indirect support to terrorist groups in order to overthrow the Syrian government.
And you know why she said that, asshole?
It's in Hillary's emails?
Because they did. Because the United States gave money to Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, ISIS. That's why. You know why? That's why. And he's making her pay a price for telling the truth to the American people about what their government actually did. And
is he not briefed on WikiLeaks himself?
And in 2019, on the Democratic presidential debate stage, you said of President Trump, this is a quote, this current president is continuing to betray us. We were supposed to be going after Al-Qaeda, but over years now, not only have we not gone after Al-Qaeda, our president is supporting Al-Qaeda. So I'm interested to hear, what was your goal in saying these things? And did you consider, before saying them, the motives of Iran and Russia, what their motives might have been before making these claims?
Senator, as someone who enlisted in the military specifically because of Al-Qaeda's terrorist attack on 9/11 and committing myself and my life to doing what I could to defeat these terrorists, it was shocking and a betrayal to me and every person who was killed on 9/11, their families and my brothers and sisters in uniform. When as a member of Congress, I learned about President Obama's dual programs that he had begun really to overthrow the regime of Syria, and being willing to, through the CIA's Timber Sycamore program that has now been made public, of working with and arming and equipping Al-Qaeda in an effort to overthrow that regime.
You could even go at this point, You can even go to Wikipedia, and they'll even tell you what timber sycamore is.
Oh, CIA had to put it on Wikipedia because it was so known.
It's
You
so
have all those things, those guys going, oh.
yes. So timber sycamore was the program that Barack Obama directed the CIA to go fund Al-Qaeda, the people who attacked us on 9/11, fund them so that they could overthrow Assad. Why? So we can put it so that Saudi Arabia and Qatar could put a pipeline through. That's what it's really about. And Israel wants to take parts of Syria, which they have. So there's two reasons. So it's an oil pipeline, and it was Israel. And so Barack Obama gave money to Al Qaeda. It's called Timber Sycamore. Look it up. And so she's now spanking the shit out of the astronaut and telling him the truth that he already knows.
Yeah, more like a head up his astronaut.
Yeah, that's right.
Starting yet another regime change war in the Middle East. DoD train and equip program, again, begun under President Obama, is widely been known, looked at, and studied, that ultimately resulted in over $500 million being used to train who they called moderate rebels, but were actually fighters working with and aligned with Al-Qaeda's affiliate on the ground in Syria, all to move forward with their regime change and not acknowledging what was obvious at the time and what has unfortunately borne true, which was that a regime change war in Syria, much like the regime change wars in Iraq, the toppling of Gaddafi and Mubarak, while these are all dictators, would likely result in the rise of Islamist extremists like Al-Qaeda taking power. I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad.
So she just said that when you get rid of, if you fund Al-Qaeda in Syria and they topple Assad, guess who's going to take over? Al-Qaeda. Just like when we got rid of Gaddafi. Guess who's going to take over? Terrorists. It's now a terrorist state.
Yeah.
And she was the one who told the truth about it. And now they got an astronaut to smear her at a Senate hearing about it on television. Fantastic. That's how corrupt your government is.
Hey, I thought we were against Islamists, but I guess they're cool sometimes.
No. Sometimes they love Islamists.
Regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance.
And so now Al-Qaeda is running Syria. Hooray! Congratulations.
Oh,
have you ever tried to tell your friends that, Kurt?
All the time.
And how do they take it?
I don't know. They just kind of blank out. People take it like, what? I don't, it's like that.
And who has already begun to persecute.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, what?
I wrote that joke for Rob Schneider to do, and that one, the crowd at Turning Point USA all was like, what?
Yeah, I know.
They liked all the others. They didn't, that one went like over their head. I have no idea.
And kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It
is certainly not in our
interests. I appreciate your answer, and thank you. My concern has to do with the tendency to repeat Russian.
There's a tendency for you to tell the truth like you just did.
Oh,
and I'm supposed to oppose you because I'm a Democrat. I'm supposed to oppose you. I'm supposed to oppose you for telling the truth about our foreign policy because we're in the pocket of the military-industrial complex in Wall Street. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to represent my people. I'm not going to do anything that has integrity or dignity. I'm going to sit here and mislead the people and slander a truth teller. Someone who's currently a colonel in the military.
You should never tell the truth if it in any way could help Russia.
That's right.
Truth being that's just called
Syrian, and even in some cases, I think we'll get into in the closed session, Iranian information, and to discount what comes from our intelligence community.
Senator, every American deserves to know that people in our own government were providing support to our sworn enemy, Al-Qaeda. That should not be acceptable by anyone.
Thank you.
Bam!
Oh, wait till that JFK report comes out, you bald prick.
Bam!
I can't wait for that JFK.
Wow. Being back on Earth has not been kind to him. Must be the gravity.
Yeah.
So just
in space, lies are weightless.
And by the way, the media never talk. The corporate media almost never mentions Timber Sycamore, which was the program, the CIA, that was what it was called, to fund terrorists, Al-Qaeda, who attacked us on 9/11 in Syria. It was called Timber Sycamore. This is how captured the mainstream media and the tech industry is. Not a single article today about Timber Sycamore. They refuse to report on it, and only the great Jeffrey Sachs keeps shouting this modern Iran-Contra a fair story. How U.S. and Israel destroyed Syria and called it peace. There's Jeffrey Sachs telling you the truth about it. But the corporate media, nobody will tell you about it. Nobody will tell you about that. Oh, yeah, we actually got in bed with Al-Qaeda in Syria to overthrow Assad. Yeah. And they'll never tell you the truth about why. They'll never tell you why. Because of an oil pipeline, and so we can give more land to Israel. That's what it was all about. That's why they had to demonize Assad. That's why they funded Al-Qaeda. That's why they're smearing Tulsi Gabbard. And that's why they smeared me. CNN still says I'm a conspiracy theorist because I told you the truth about the gas attacks. There's more. Watch Senator Mark Kelly try to challenge Tulsi Gabbard on the issue of Syria chemical weapons allegations. Note that when she twice invokes the OPCW whistleblowers, so OPCW stands for the is it Office of Prevention of Chemical Weapons or Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons, right? So what that used to be considered nonpartisan. What did I say? Organization for the Prohibition. What did I say? The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. That's what OPCW stands for. Cut out the part that makes me look stupid. The OPCW whistleblowers. So they did a report on the chemical attacks in Syria, and then when the official report came out, it didn't look anything like the evidence. And so the guys who were actually on the ground said, hey, they doctored this report. And they're called OPCW whistleblowers. And they told you the truth.
Yo, this guy's a scumbag, dude. He's the one that replaced Kristen Sinema.
Yeah, this guy's a scumbag. The
Wow.
astronaut's a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm pretty sure his wife was the one, Gabby Giffords, who got shot in the head, which makes him sympathetic.
Can you explain to me then why you doubted the intelligence community's conclusions in these two cases, Duma and Kanche-kun, but not the others? And please be specific.
These two cases were being looked at to be used as a pretext for major military movement. And my fear was a repeat of the deployment of another 500,000 soldiers like we saw in Iraq towards what was the Obama administration's goal, which was regime change in Syria. The question specifically that I raised around these two came about because there were two reasons. One, that assessment was made with high confidence and low information. The information that they had came from those on the ground in an Al-Qaeda controlled area and therefore were Al-Qaeda linked sources. And there was conflicting information that came from the UN's Office on the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons Inspectors, as well as an MIT professor, Ted Postel,
I
who
want to
looked
talk
at
about him
these
for a
extensively.
second.
So she's saying the reason why I said these two gas attacks, I questioned them, the official narrative of them, is because the information we got, came from Al-Qaeda, and whistleblowers at the OPCW told us, also this MIT professor. That's why.
Did you look into his credentials, yes or no?
Yes.
And were you aware of his appearances on Russian Today, which is used by the Russians to disseminate government-approved messages?
No.
Were you aware Postal relied on a chemistry student with a record of defending the Assad regime?
At that time, I was not. I have been made aware since.
Do you consider this person or these two individuals now, do you consider them a better source for the chemistry of sarin gas than the U.S. intelligence community?
I assess that at the time, the information, I don't know the second person you're referring to, but MIT professor Ted Postel and the inspectors of the OPCW provided some credible questions that deserved examination.
Okay, thank you. Did you attempt to weigh Postel's claims against the significant evidence and assessments already conducted by the IC?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. So here's my concern here, Colonel. When we began this, you described a thoughtful approach to analyzing intelligence and reaching conclusions. This is what we expect of our professionals. But we just kind of walked through how you came to question Assad's use of chemical weapons in these two cases with a different approach. And I don't reject seeking out differing viewpoints. We need to do that. But you started from a place of doubting the conclusions of the U.S. intelligence community, and then you sought out information.
Which is a great place to start. You want to start by doubting what the CIA is telling you. That's a great place to start. And he's making her seem like, why aren't you a better person? How dare you question the CIA?
That confirmed your viewpoint. That led you to embrace the opinions of two individuals that I think we disagree on this. You think they had expertise, I do not, and others do not.
And he's completely ignoring the fact that she's talking about the whistleblowers from the OPCW. He's completely ignoring. She talked about it twice. He's focusing in on Ted Postal and some other guy we don't know who it is.
But these individuals were sympathetic to Russia and the Assad regime. It also led you to minimize or discount the overwhelmingly information that contradicted your viewpoint, including the expert assessments of our own intelligence community. And they don't get it right 100% of the time. I get that. But what I have seen makes it clear that at the same time that you were skeptical of our intelligence community's assessments, you would not apply the same skepticism to information that came from sympathizers of Russia and Assad. And I think that's something that we should all be concerned about. Thank you.
Yeah, well, both Russia and Assad are more trustworthy than the intelligence community, right. You bald prick. You absolute twat. You could trust Putin more than anyone in the CIA, you bald egg asshole. Wow, what a fuck he is.
So here's a guy who knows something about Syrian gas attacks, Aaron Mate. He says, for the first time in a U.S. government setting, the OPCW whistleblowers who challenged the cover-up of their chemical weapons investigation in Duma, Syria, were mentioned today. Tulsi Gabbard twice invoked them in response to Senator Mark Kelly's efforts to challenge her skepticism on specific allegations that Assad's forces used chemical weapons. The whistleblowers have been smeared by the OPCW but never refuted. The establishment media has also pretended that they don't exist, just like Mark Kelly, just like that senator, bald astronaut, just pretended they don't exist. He wouldn't even acknowledge them because their censored findings undermine a key pro-war narrative. That's why.
I want a Timber Sycamore t-shirt that says Timber Sycamore on it. Or like hashtag Timber Sycamore. Just that. No explanation. Just Timber Sycamore like it's a brand, like Timberland. And I want to wear it everywhere.
So if you want to know what really happened in Syria and why, people like Senator Mark Kelly will never tell you. The New York Times will never tell you. The Washington Post will never tell you. MSNBC, CNN, Fox, they'll never tell you. You know who will tell you? Tulsi Gabbard just told you. This show will tell you. We were on it first, debunking the gas attacks in Syria. Aaron Mate was on it and is still on it. You are not going to hear this. You're not going to hear it from the Young Turks. You're not going to hear it from people who have MSNBC contracts. You're not going to hear it on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, New York Times, Washington Post. You're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear the truth about Syria. So that's the truth. The truth is we were funding Al-Qaeda, the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11, to overthrow Assad so we could put a oil pipeline through there and give part of it to Israel. And now Al-Qaeda is running Syria. Are you happy? Al-Qaeda is. Al-Qaeda.
Well, is Russia happy? Then I'll tell you if I'm happy. How does Russia feel about it?
So here's another great part of the hearing. Tulsi Gabbard will be required to disown all prior support for whistleblowers as a condition of confirmation today. Edward Snowden says, I encourage her to do so. Tell them I harmed national security and the sweet, soft feelings of staff in D.C. That's what passes for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey, thank you for your service, Edward Snowden. So thank you for your service.
Edward Snowden, what he did was, just like Julian Assange, revealed crimes being committed by your government against you.
Yeah, they weren't spying on the enemy. They're spying on you.
On you.
You must be the enemy.
On you.
Fucking pricks.
So that's what Edward Snowden did. Edward Snowden is a patriot and a hero. And now...
And all the dumb shit liberals thought he was bad because they thought, well, if it's Obama watching me every second of the day, that's like Jesus.
Yeah. And now this garbage, this guy who sounds drunk every time he talks.
Yeah. How else would you do that job?
I'm pretty sure he starts the morning with a shot. No, I'm not judging him. I'm not judging him.
How's he get through his day?
I feel, everybody has their own addictions. I was addicted to weed for years and years.
I am currently.
There you go. And so now he's going to try and get her to disown and disavow Edward Snowden and try to make Edward Snowden, who revealed crimes. They always leave that out. He revealed crimes that your own government were committing against you, not against someone else.
I hope he did info dump, which he didn't, but I wish he did. And I wish it harmed you all irreparably, you fucking cunt.
Didn't Glenn Greenwald win a Pulitzer Prize for reporting on the stuff that Edward Snowden revealed? I'm pretty sure.
More like a Putin surprise.
Yeah. So watch this.
Do you believe, as the chairman of this committee believes, as the vast majority of members of our intelligence agency believe, that Edward Snowden was a traitor to the United States of America?
Do you believe Edward Snowden is a traitor to the United States of America?
Well, if he's a traitor, what does that make this dude?
Right? What about the government that was illegally spying on their own citizens and lying about it? Are they traitors to America? Or the guy who exposed that? Do you see how everything is backwards in Washington, D.C.? Do you see how that is?
Yeah. I like all the senators you never heard of come out for these things, and then you see exactly who owns them.
Yep.
Senator, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will work with you to make sure that there is not another Snowden-like
social
leak.
Media. It's not a moment to propagate theories, conspiracy theories, or attacks on journalism in the United States. This is when you need to answer the questions of the people whose votes you're asking for to be confirmed as the chief intelligence officer of this nation. As my colleague said, this is not about you. It's about the people that serve the intelligence agencies of the United States. Is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America? That is not a hard question to answer when the stakes are this high.
Senator, as someone who has
your
served
answer,
in
yes
uniform,
or no, is Edward Snowden a traitor to the United States of America?
As someone who has worn our uniform in combat, I understand how...
I want you to explain the theory of relativity to me, yes or no?
Are they going to let him drive home after that?
No kidding.
This is where the rubber hits the road. Get his keys.
What is the MC square? What does it mean? Yes or no?
Do you support this onesie? What a
so she's
Colorado vote for him?
So she's spoken out in support of Edward Snowden, and of course the Democratic senator and the blob is going to attack you for the good thing you do. They're not after Tulsi Gabbard for her support of Israel in their slaughter of women and children in Gaza. No, they're not on her for that. They're on her for sticking up for someone who blew the whistle on crimes your government was committing against you. So that just like with RFK Jr., they don't attack him on the things he's done wrong. They attack him on the things that they've done right. Just like they attacked RFK for suing Big Pharma and winning. They attacked him for that. They're attacking her for standing up for a whistleblower who let everybody in America know that your own government was committing crimes against you. By the way, they've gone out and they're supposedly, because of Edward Snowden's whistleblowing, they've supposedly had reforms. Who did it? Who reformed it? Congress. They're like, hey, yeah, that guy, yeah, he's right. Here, watch this. Watch what she says.
Critical our national security
Apparently
is.
you don't. Apparently you don't. Let me ask you.
Do you unconditionally support anything that we tell you to do? Here we go. Mark Warner now tries to get Tulsi Gabbard to say Edward Snowden is a traitor. Edward Snowden is a hero who deserves a full pardon and a Medal of Freedom. Here we go.
Simple yes or no question. Do you
Yes
still
or no?
think Edward Snowden is brave?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Edward Snowden broke the law. I do not agree with or support with all of the information and intelligence that he released, nor the way in which he did it. There would have been opportunities for him to come to you on this committee or seek out the IG to release that information. The fact is, he also, even as he broke the law, released information that exposed egregious, illegal, and unconstitutional programs that are happening within our government.
Excuse me,
that led to serious reforms.
Excuse me, stop. Quit telling me the thing that is the real point. Please don't stop talking about the real point, the point that the American people actually care about. Please stop doing that.
Do you condemn this onesie?
Congress undertook.
Chairman, we got 5 minutes. So I take your answer, and these are your quotes. Brave, please join my bipartisan legislation calling for charges to be dropped against him. Do you disagree that legislation was not appropriate? Do you believe he is brave or not?
Yeah,
Back those words?
Once again, Senator, Edward Snowden broke the law. He also released information
we agree that Edward Snowden
that exposed the United States government's illegal
your
programs.
Legislation and your words are still your beliefs. Yes or no, please.
I'm making myself very clear. Edward Snowden broke the law. He released information about the United States government's
I've got
illegal activities.
Ma'am,
If I may just finish my thoughts, Senator. In this role that I've been nominated for, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will be responsible for protecting our nation's secrets. And I have 4 immediate steps that I would take to prevent another Snowden-like leak.
Ma'am, I would simply ask you again. I don't think you're going to answer. I agree with Tom Cotton. He's a traitor. You, for years, until you got chosen by President Trump, have celebrated this guy as brave. You've called for him to be pardoned, for his charges to be dropped. I cannot imagine a director of national intelligence that would say that kind of behavior is okay. How would we maintain the trust of the IC and the contractors who work for it? How would we maintain
the
trust of the people who are illegally spying on Americans? How are we going to maintain the trust of the people who are committing crimes against America if we're going to have people like Edward Snowden tell you about the crimes they're committing?
Hey, find out whoever thinks Snowden's not a hero that's in government and get them the fuck out. That's a real easy way to clear the swamp or whatever the slogan is.
Hey, you know who else defended? I wish she would have said this, but she didn't. You know who else defended Edward Snowden? Daniel Ellsberg. The guy with the Pentagon Papers, who let us know that the Vietnam War was one big lie.
He's another traitor.
Another guy they tried. Another traitor, right? Another guy they tried.
A traitor to our contractors.
A traitor to our contractors.
Look at it. This is unreal. I hope everybody remembers the names of these motherfuckers.
Yep.
The trust of our Five Eye partners. I find it very troubling. Let me move to 702. I know other members are going to raise this.
So,
won't someone think of the Five Eyes?
So, and there was no way for Edward Snowden to get this information out. There aren't proper channels.
He's the only hero there.
Yeah.
All the ones that stayed and didn't do what he did are punks.
So,
he's the only guy whose head was on right in the whole group.
It was subtle, but Tulsi was indirectly asked about her speaking out on the U.S.-funded biolabs in Ukraine. Did you know this? Senator Bennett, this guy, the guy who's has an alcohol problem, and I have sympathy for him. But he shows up to.
I don't go drive, dude. Go out and drive, please.
Very carefully asked Tulsi about her stance on Russia's legitimate security concerns and how she is repeating Russia's justification for invading Ukraine, which includes their accusations of U.S.-funded bioweapons development in Ukraine. Accusations.
What? Are peaceful biolabs? That was Rogo's joke. You make mushrooms, peaceful biolabs, brand mushrooms, organic psilocybin.
So this senator is consciously avoiding saying any buzzwords like biolab or bioweapons, because the Democrats know that people like me are waiting for them to bring it up. They are being very careful about how they question her about this subject without bringing more attention to the secret they are already desperately trying to cover up. The secret is that the United States was running biolabs in Ukraine. And why do you think that Dr. Fauci's pardon goes back to 2014? Why do you think Hunter Biden's pardon goes back to 2014? That's because, and Joe Biden's family's pardons go back. Why do you think that is? Because in 2014, the CIA instigated a coup of the democratically elected government in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that's when Joe Biden had control of the country. And that's
like the one they did here.
And that's when they started doing the biolabby things in Ukraine. That's why. So let's watch this.
Are you aware that your comments about proxy wars and
Every time he talks,
legitimate security concerns, quote your own words, are in alignment with what the Russians have said to justify their invasion of Ukraine? Yes or
Senator,
no?
I don't pay attention to Russian propaganda.
So
My goal is to speak the truth,
the answer is
regardless of whether you like it or not.
I'll take it. That's fine. You said you are used to speaking truth to power.
Whatever. I don't even want to talk to you anymore.
What are you doing mentioning things that make me look like an ass chimp? Why are you why are you mentioning those? This is a one-way street. I get to embarrass you. You don't get to embarrass me back.
No, if you excuse me, I have to go drive to pick up my kids from school.
Senator Michael Bennet yells at Tulsi Gabbard for stating that the Ukraine war could likely have been avoided had the Biden administration addressed Russia's legitimate security concerns. He calls the Russian propaganda. He calls it Russian propaganda. If that's true, then
wait. Is Russian propaganda the truth? How could that be?
Turns out.
How could their form of propaganda just be objective facts we know happened?
So he calls this Russian propaganda, saying that the Ukraine war could have been avoided. He calls that Russian propaganda. Aaron Matei said, well, if that's true, then the top NATO and Obama officials have spread Russian propaganda, because the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, said Putin went to war to prevent more NATO on his borders. That's what the head of NATO said. Charles Kupchen, senior Obama official, Russia has legitimate security concerns about NATO setting up shop on the other side of its 1,000-mile-plus border with Ukraine. NATO may be a defensive alliance, but it brings to bear aggregate military power that Moscow understandably does not want parked near its territory. So he's calling that Russian propaganda. So,
are you aware?
So I just here's Matt Orfalea put this together, and if you don't think that the Ukraine war was about NATO threatening to expand into Ukraine, watch this.
President Putin actually sent a draft treaty that he wanted NATO to sign.
That's the head of NATO.
To promise no more NATO enlargement. That was what he sent us. And that was a precondition for not invade Ukraine. Of course, we didn't sign that.
So Putin said, all you got to do is sign this paper that said you won't advance NATO into Ukraine, and I won't invade Ukraine. And he said, no, not going to say. So they're saying, no, we're going to threaten to expand right up to your border. Nuclear missiles, the whole deal. So right there we know, but watch this.
So he went to war to prevent NATO, more NATO close to his borders.
There it is. He went to, so that's the head of NATO telling you that Putin and Russia went to war to prevent NATO from being on his border. He just said it. That's the head of NATO. You want to hear how that got reported in the news in the United States? Watch this.
Flashback.
This is fundamentally not about NATO expansion.
It was never about NATO enlargement.
It's not about NATO.
It's not about NATO expanding toward Russia.
This was never about NATO.
It's absolutely nothing to do with NATO expansionism.
And it has nothing to do with NATO.
This is not about NATO.
It's not about NATO.
It's not really about NATO.
This is not about NATO.
Seriously, it's not about NATO.
This was never about NATO.
It was never about NATO. Let's be honest.
This doesn't have anything to do with NATO.
Nothing to do with NATO at all.
Yeah, he's claiming it's like security purposes, but we can see the clear reason.
But NATO is not the reason.
This is not about NATO expansion. This is about the democratic expansion.
Ukraine bans religious organizations.
We are protecting democracy right now.
Ukraine is banning political parties.
Because it's a democracy.
Ukraine restricts books and music.
It's about democracy.
Ukraine won't hold elections.
It's about democracy.
And it's not about NATO expansion.
This war in Ukraine is not about NATO.
It's not about NATO.
That's not about NATO.
It has nothing to do with NATO.
Nothing to do with NATO expansion.
It's not about NATO expansion.
Nothing to do with NATO.
It isn't really about NATO.
It's not about NATO.
It's not about NATO enlargement.
In fact, it has nothing to do with NATO.
It's not about NATO encroaching.
It was not about NATO. NATO is just a fictitious, imaginary adversary for Mr. Putin and for Russia.
It was never about NATO.
That's not what it's been about. It's been about him trying to expand his sphere of influence.
Hang on, I mean, the two are not mutually exclusive. Obviously, Russia has wished for a sphere of influence over Ukraine, but if the West had not challenged Russian interests so directly, I think that there was a chance to avoid this war.
He wanted us to sign a promise never to enlarge NATO. We rejected that.
We'll keep going. Tulsi Gabbard calls Soleimani strike. So here is where she has to do a flip-flop on what she said so she could get confirmed. Remember how Edward Snowden told her, hey, go ahead and call me a traitor if it'll get you confirmed. Do what you have to do to get confirmed. That's what Edward Snowden was telling her. And here she's going to do what she has to do to get confirmed. Watch this.
And last, I want to return to the Soleimani strike. At the time, you said it was illegal, that President Trump did was illegal, would cause very significant problems down the line. What is your position on that strike? And will you be able to advise the president in future issues with regard to national security?
Those broader issues that I raised with regard to war powers, I have been consistent on. I didn't have access to all of the information behind that strike at the time, and my concerns were that that may be an escalatory action. President Trump was right. There was no escalation beyond that, and his policies towards Iran turned out to be very effective for our own national security.
So she flip-flopped on that. As Michael Tracy points out, Tulsi Gabbard now says she agrees with Trump drone assassinating Soleimani. She is retrospectively agreeing with an act she previously denounced as illegal and unconstitutional. Yeah, she's trying to get...
No kidding.
Trying to get confirmed. Trying to get...
Hey, do what the wokies did and sneak into the establishment and then destroy it. How about that?
Yeah, remember that?
The wokey way.
I wouldn't be overly concerned about people saying what they need to say to get out of an ambush trap while they're trying to get confirmed.
I don't understand why that collection of dipshits gets to pick at all. Why is that even a thing? In private? They get to go in private and pick? Why aren't they lined up against a wall, Saddam Hussein style, while Trump fake dabs his eyes with tears like Saddam did?
Okay, over to Steph.
All right, Jimmy, it's time to go to Rumble. Are you all set for that?
Yeah, okay.
All right, let me make sure that I have it all ready for everybody. Hold on, let's see. There we go. And I will pin it right now. Pin it. And I'll give you the link again. I have to refresh one more thing. Yeah, hold on. Let me refreshing. Stand by. I got to refresh this so everything goes smoothly, ladies and gentlemen. I am refreshed. We will see you on Rumble. Be right back.